So much to talk about and so little time. Anyway, well, mayors, members of the city council, and city manager and city attorney, what you're really faced with here are two questions, I think. First is, are we going to change our system, attempt to change our system of electing council members? And I think clearly there's a majority, if not a complete unanimity on that point, that we do want to see a change from the present system. Secondly, is a question about choice. What I've learned about the Austin voter is that they appreciate choice. They like having choices, and they like getting the opportunity to vote on issues. And so that's the other part of it. A majority of Austin supports changing the way we select our council. Unfortunately, we're divided on this issue, as evident by this discussion tonight. And that leads to the greater question of choice. I think that Austin voters would like to see a change, and it's my hope that they'll, if they're given a choice of two possible alternatives, that they'll choose the one they feel most comfortable with. I've heard some on the other side say that only they should be allowed to be on the ballot. And all I can say about that is, what are they afraid of? Well, you'll find out, won't you? And I've heard, and I'd say back, you know, how undemocratic and how very un-Austin that attitude is. If you don't think the hybrid system isn't supported by a very large number of voters in this city, you're in for a very rude awakening. A very rude awakening in November. Each of you council members that were up for election this year were opposed by someone who supported single-member districts only. And if you supported 10-1, you were opposed by someone who said they were more for 10-1 than you were. Yet we see who sits here at the dais today, do we not? Don't be intimidated by the attacks. The voters have a far more balanced view of these proceedings, and they expect you, the City Council, to be fair, but to also exercise your best judgment in behalf of the citizens that are here now and will be here in the future, because whatever system you come up with that is approved by the voters will probably be here for the next 40 or 50 years in all probability. I want to address just a few questions or a few issues that came up here with regard to some of the things that were said by other speakers. First, the SOS issue. As one of the people who helped give birth to the SOS movement in 1991 and 1992, I want to assure you, I was there with SOS. I saw how SOS was formed and how it came about. And let me assure you, this movement, the petition movement on 10-1, is not SOS. It doesn't have the energy that SOS had, nor the kind of just sheer, commitment. I can assure you of that. Secondly, I noticed Peck said that, how many council members have been elected from the same zip code over all these years. Well, let me point out that 4 of you that presently sit on the City Council are not from those zip codes. You're not in any of those zip codes he was referring to. The process, picks and chooses candidates based on their ability to appeal to the voters who participate. If we're going to move to November, which I hope we do, I think the voters will approve that, we're going to see a participation level that will be remarkable. but it won't be because of the city council elections. It'll be because it's in November, in a general election in all likelihood, at least 2 out of 3 occasions anyway. If we were to have this election this year in November for city council, there would probably be anywhere from 25 to 35,000 votes per district, whether it was a 10-1 or an 8-2-1. So there's going to be a participation level that you haven't seen before, and the consequences of that we don't really fully understand. But let me assure you, as far as the effect of money, money is going to continue to play a role. Now, I don't like that, and no one else does, I hope, but it's not going. Having a single-member district system does not inure you from the effect of large amounts of cash being poured into a district. This city council basically makes decisions that affect, shall we say, the largesse or the well-being of certain interest, and they're quite willing to invest in council districts, whether it's in that large system or in a single-member district system. Don't fool yourself for 1 minute about that. As far as someone referring to we can't have single-member districts or at-large system because of some court ruling, let me just say this. Presently, the Austin Independent School District has 2 at-large districts. If there's an issue legally about us having at-large seats, why does the AISD have 2 at-large seats? Quite candidly, I think that there's not an issue with that at all. And as far as 8 versus 10, your own legal counsel on Tuesday, your outside legal counsel, said that you could draw districts that would affect 2 Hispanic seats and an African American seat on an 8-2-1 plan. And the same would be basically the same effect for a 10-1 plan. Since everyone's practicing law here without a license, I'll go out on a limb and say that the Justice Department will probably say, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, 8-2-1 is fine. So, are there any questions?
Councilmember Spellman.
I'm going to give you the same scenario, David, that I gave Peck a few minutes ago. We got 2 proposals on the ballot, 8-2-1 and 10-1. You somehow end up being in charge of the 8-2-1 forces, and you're trying to come up with a good strategy. Peck Young has just done his scorched earth thing, trying to blast 8-2-1 and talked about all the tragic, awful things that will happen if 8-2-1 gets more votes or somehow gets over 50%, somehow passes.
Right.
How are you going to respond?
Well, I think the issue is, if we basically pull up next to each other and just blast away at each other, there's a chance neither one will win. That's obvious. My inclination is to believe that if the 10-1 campaign is so confident that they can get a majority of the support in this city, then they should basically campaign and sell their product, shall we say. And I'll be happy to sell our product, and we'll see who comes out on top. I'm not interested in having a big negative campaign. I'm sort of reminded of what happened if you ever read that short story, The Devil and Daniel Webster, how he all of a sudden realizes that all this sort of negativity, if you want to call it that, is actually going to wind up boomeranging on him and pulls back from it. So if we want to change the system, and I think the voters like a choice, and they don't appreciate people who are trying to prevent them from having a choice, I assure you. I've seen it on many occasions in this city, and I've been here 42 years. And I've been in most of the political campaigns that have occurred in this city in one way or another. So that would be my response, if that's an effective answer for you.
Well, let me push you just a little bit.
Okay?
What I heard you saying is you think the right situation is you sell your product, he sells his product, you don't mess with him, he doesn't mess with you, and we'll find out what
No,
happens.
and let me just say, I think comparisons are fine.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they have something to compare. We have something to compare. It's when you start going into this invective and sort of personal attacks and that kind of stuff, a sort of a vilification of the city council in the process, you know, an attempt to basically paint the council as having somehow attempted to thwart the will of the people. Well, let me just say, there are going to be 250 to 300,000 people voting in this race. And while 30,000 signatures is nothing to sneeze at, it hardly decides this election. And I suspect a number of those people won't necessarily be voting for 10-1 by the time we reach November.
Because you're going to be able to persuade them that 821's a better idea?
What'd you say?
Because you're going to be able to persuade them that 821 is a better idea after all?
Well, one would hope.
I see your point. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.